So, we managed to get some kip, always good, but there is a spy in Jazz's band. That was surprisingly fitting. And yeah, that's not good. Kind of need to find out who that is, because it's really not good. And also, this is part of the trading quest. It just takes rather a long time for it to get to the point. Now, we're in the Cantabile Inn, and basically Cantabile is an Italian word which literally means singable or song-like. In instrumental music, it is a particular style of playing designed to imitate the human voice. For 18th century composers, that is most often synonymous with cantando, which is singing, and indicates a measured tempo and flexible legato playing with smoothness. For later composers, particularly in piano music, cantabile is the drawing out of one particular musical line against the accompaniment, so sort of similar to a counterpoint, I feel. There is also a whole thing of a cantabile movement, which is the first half of a double aria followed by a cabaletta. Obviously all parts of a song. So an aria is, well, at least was originally any expressive melody, which was usually but not always performed by a singer. And it is mostly seen in opera, but it ultimately became used exclusively to describe a self-contained piece for one voice with or without orchestral accompaniment. And then the cabaletta is a more animated section following the more song-like cantabile.
We'll reach the town of Andante just after these.
So they all form a little unit, which is quite nice.
We're finally back home.
So here we are, in the Woodblock Groves. And you may hear the term woodblock and think, oh, that's just a normal thing. It is actually a musical instrument as well, because there's always musical instruments in these things. So woodblock is a small slit drum made from a single piece of wood, which is used as obviously a percussion instrument because it's a drum. So effectively what it looks like is just a wooden block with a slit in it, basically to give it that sound of it being a drum, basically. I think they did used to have, or there are instances of rounded wood blocks, so like a tube type thing, but they are mostly just seen as being a single block of wood. Which is just quite fun.
Is everyone alright?
Now, the Woodblock Groves are unique for one very specific reason, which you probably already noticed. The second you enter it, you end up getting poisoned. So there's a variety of status effects which you can suffer during a Eternal Sonata, and this is kind of annoying, really. Some of them are fine to deal with, but some of them are particularly annoying. So poison, you take a certain amount of damage based on your current maximum HP each time you begin a turn. If the character doesn't have any tactical time, then they will also stagger at the beginning of the turn and lose some time on the action gauge before they're able to make any moves. What's nice is that you can use that on enemies and bosses to make them a lot easier, as they will then have less time to act and attack. But most bosses do have resistance to poison, so it may take a number of times to get it to take effect, but that's fine. There are a few others, so there's Slow, which basically causes you to move sluggishly when travelling across the field of battle. Stop, which means you're unable to act for the first 2 seconds of your turn. It can be slightly alleviated by nudging and holding the analog stick forward to move prior to the start of a character's turn, but it's really irritating. Shining Body generates a field of light around you, which means that you can only use light attacks. Darkness Body, which means you can only use dark attacks. Air Body, which means that the character's special attacks are not affected by the shadow generated by an opponent, and the character doesn't cast a shadow, so that could cause interesting things. There's Burst, which means that the character's overall strength is doubled, but their defense is halved. So it can be very helpful in making short work of tough opponents later on in the game, because you might be able to defeat them before they can cause you too much damage. But you do have to be just really wary of that.
Are you catching on yet?
There's also Passive, where if you're targeted by the enemy, you are unable to use counterattacks. And what's nice about that is that it has no penalty up until party level 4. So that is not a problem at all. Then you have Marked, which you are never going to get hit by, and basically that is what happens when Viola uses Hawkeye. So you get the green glyph beneath the opponent, and so they become easier to attack, well, easier to target from distances from Viola's bow, since she only needs to hit within the glyph, and all attacks from any characters do greater damage. Any opponents that have high defense that morph into stronger forms is effectively neutralized. Special attacks deal massive damage, but the status is removed from the target following any special attack, but it can be reapplied using Hawkeye.
Alright, let's keep moving forward.
So that's all nice. You also get Special Attack Burst, which isn't named by the game either. Whenever you use Salsa's Shadow Silhouette, she and anyone in the immediate area around her are placed in that sort of bubble. And that means that their next non-healing special attack will carry great power, regardless of whether or not echoes have been built up. And that means that if you then have extra echoes, they will deal really a whole lot of damage. And it can be combined with Mark for even greater damage. You can also get Enhanced Defense, which is also not named by the game, and you only get with the one remaining party member's move that we don't have yet, so we'll deal with that then. Obviously you have KO, which is when you get knocked out, which is really annoying, and ultimately what will happen is that they will effectively, your party members will become an obstacle if you get killed. Obviously, if you use an Angel Trumpet or a Goddess Bouquet or what have you, then they will be revived. Also, if you finish any battle with a party member that's been KO'd, they will be revived automatically following the battle with 1 HP, but they won't gain any experience from that battle. Nor will the lost experience be gained by those who are not KO'd. So basically, you're gonna waste all that experience. If every member of your party is KO'd, then it's game over. If the character was under any other status prior to being knocked out, they will not be under that status when revived unless it's equipped with armour or an accessory that generates it. And that does also apply to monsters. but most enemies will disappear when they are defeated.
Is everyone alright?
Apart from the mushroom type opponents in the 360 release. I think in the PS3 release they all disappear, which is fine by me. And last but not least, we have Regenerate, which basically means that you'll obviously recover health at the beginning of each turn, which can be hugely helpful. It can be either a percentage of your total HP or a fixed amount, if granted by a particular item. If a character is poisoned, HP will be recovered first, prior to the damage from poison taking effect. Really annoying, but quite clever to make poison actually have a meaning. Otherwise, you know, you could just completely cheese it by having that equipped so that poison means nothing. So, yeah, the poison in this area can get a little bit frustrating, because you're going to want to level up to, I think it's about level 23-ish, so it's not too horrendous in the grand scheme of where you need to be by the time you finish this area, but it can... I mean, you're here for a while and you're going to take a lot of damage because you're automatically going to suffer from the poison, which is just really frustrating.
Alright, let's keep moving forward. Good.
And don't worry, very soon... Oh, already? Oh, that's nice. We can start flitting people in and out so that everyone gets to be involved. You've already seen it take effect in a way that sometimes... Well, the way I'm playing the game anyway, you end up spending a lot of time with a brand new character when you first get them, until they are of equal level to everyone else. And then once they've hit that point where they're on equal playing field, you can alternate around, and that's just very satisfying. And it's so easy to get a little bit confused in the woodblock groves, because I mean, just look at the way this all weaves around on itself. You're just like, I don't know which direction I'm going in. It can get very confusing. And this is something that I find quite hilarious. The weapon we get for Claves in here is weaker than her current weapon. Obviously it has different effects, which is fine, and that's could be quite helpful. But I would always recommend going for the higher attack on a weapon, because status ailments, at least until, I would say, the end game really, don't have any major influence over things. They can make your life easier, but it's nothing that I would shout home about. And, oh boy, that is not a lot of damage at all. I think part of what I'm trying to do is to get the bloody onions to run in to the shadow, because I'm pretty sure that they do change if you get them into the dark. Obviously, you kind of want to take them down as bloody onions, because they will give you more experience, I think. And yeah, I kept wanting to use a fully powered up Hawkeye to be awesome. The game just did not want me to have that. It was really quite depressing.
Are you catching on yet?
Just like, just come on, just give me this game. I'm making you look good, or he's trying to, and saying how much I enjoy you, and I'm trying to get you some extra fans, because I feel you're a bit underloved. And then you do things like that to me where I can't pull off the fancy moves I want to pull off. Huh. But yeah, there's also one kind of annoying thing that's going to occur in this dungeon. And that is that, so in the Adagio Swamps there was a fish, it was a bluegill, that didn't look very well. But we couldn't do anything with it then because we didn't have the right item. We are going to get that right item in this dungeon, but actually really close to the end. So what we then have to do is run all the way back through the Woodblock Groves, all the way through Adagio Swamp to where that bluegill was, and then run all the way back, because that is just so much fun and that makes me so happy. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I'm okay with a bit of backtracking. What we have to do here is not the type of backtracking that I enjoy. Also don't like backtracking that occurs because I made a cock-up. Let's just say that when we get up to chapter... I want to say chapter 5? Yeah, I think it's chapter 5. Kinda made a boob in following instructions, and let's just say I had a rather annoying, oh, I've got to now go all the way back through a dungeon to do a thing. You'd have to do it anyway, but I had to do it after finishing the dungeon. So I had to reload and do all sorts of fancy editing to get everything to work. Why, past me? Why were you so dim? I mean, ultimately, it's fine, because these things happen, and really, I get to hear more of Make the Leap. So, that is good by me. Now, something that I would like to point out is one of the things that I sort of wanted from Eternal Sonata that it never gave me was all of the weapons having alternate appearances, and the same with the equipment. I get why they couldn't do it with the armour and stuff, because they've got these very set character designs and they don't want to change them up. That is fine. That is very similar to most Japanese RPGs. But there are a lot of weapons in the game, all with very different effects. They all have very different names as well, which leads to their different effects. And so you would think that they would all have different designs, but they don't. And while it's not necessarily a major problem, because really you should just be focusing on what are the stats for these weapons, what is important, what isn't important, just rolling on like that. When you're given the option of alternate weapons, you kind of want an aesthetic change to occur. Because it's, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're using a different weapon. Because quite often, all of the weapons sort of blend into one another. Obviously some have certain effects that others don't. But you're just kind of constantly going for the, well, I'm going to go for that one because it's got more attack. There's no pointless but still satisfying decision to go, well, I'll go for that weapon because I like what it looks like. Because I certainly know that on the odd occasion that is what I have done with things. Like, something may not be the best weapon to use, but it looks very aesthetically pleasing, and so of course I'm going to use it. That will just make me happy.
Much better.
In other occasions, no, I'm just going to go for the thing that's more powerful.
I can't
But
complain.
it's nice to have that choice. And Eternal Sonata just doesn't give you that choice. Which does disappoint me, but can't really do much about it, really. I do recall there being some changes that you can make in the PS3 version. But yeah, so the main differences are there's extra elements added to the story. So in Chapter 1 Raindrops, there's a new sequence added in the game's opening in which Frederick is heard lamenting the fate of his late sister Amelia, while the fortune teller states that a new journey begins, and Solfège, who is Polka's mother, says once again it all comes to an end. During Revolution, this chapter, following the story of the last chapter, during the story of the Sage King, which we got at Fort Vermata, and the party discusses mineral powder, and Jazz states that he'll tell the party everything they know while they're walking. That dialogue was previously absent, leading to Viola's statement of that was about what we expected when the party arrived at the Cabasa Bridge, to feel somewhat nothingy, like it just makes no purpose, makes no sense whatsoever. There's also a new cutscene added right at the end when everyone's falling into the water beneath the Cabasa Bridge. Allegretto tries to save Polka, but isn't able to reach her, and they get swept away. Which makes sense. Gives a bit more context to the fact of them all getting separated, and so on and so forth. There's also brand new dungeons. Well, there's two brand new dungeons, one of which is part of the story, one of which is optional. There were also alternate costumes available for Allegretto, Beat and Polka. So Polka's is called Lament, and it's basically a black and white version of her outfit. It's also got a bit of a maid effect to it. Oh no, that's where it's found. It's found in Lament, in the Mirror Surface, which is the added dungeon. Beat's alternate costume is basically a sailor outfit, kind of adorable, which is found in the Ritardando sewers, but it's only available in Chapter 5. Allegretto's alternate costume is sort of a little bit more knightly, and that is found much later on, like Chapter 6. And Polka actually has two alternate costumes. The second one is the black and white one. I don't know what the first one looks like. And that one is found in Tenuto Village, in Polka's bedroom. Oh, so Polka's first alternate costume is a sort of blue, black and white version of her outfit with like a shorter little apron thing. And it's kind of cute, but also kind of pointless. You've also got a French option for the subtitles and other on-screen text. Plus you get things like the amount of EXP granted by most enemies and bosses is significantly lowered. Statistics of monsters is greatly changed, so that makes it more challenging. The levels at which a number of the character's special attacks are learned are altered, usually in a way that's less favourable to the player. You get 2 brand new playable characters, both of whom we haven't met yet. They join you briefly for a period in Chapter 4, and then join the party permanently at the beginning of Chapter 7, and Frederick's Phantom Pain skill, which we haven't learnt yet, instead of increasing the enemy's attack, lowers their defense. Or, that's meant to be decreasing the enemy's attack, lowers their defense. I don't know, but it's fine. I'll go into a few other extras as we go, but that'll turn up when those situations actually occur. Right now we're just kind of making our way back to the Adagio Swamp because we need to go see that blue gill to help it out a little bit. It seemed like it needed our help, and I'm only happy to oblige.